Okay, so we're going to take a look at section, no, we're going to be in the 2002 version of the National Electrical Code, because in Article 110, there was a new labeling requirement for incident energy. I would say it's arguably the first outside of ground fault protection of equipment, which was introduced in the National Electrical Code during the 1971 edition of the NEC. In 2002, there were various public inputs that were made and public comments around arc flash protection. So the title of section 110.16 is arc flash protection in the 2002 code. And we'll first start with where we ended up in the code. And then we'll talk a little bit about why we got to where we're at and what was proposed. So 110.16, flash protection, switchboards, panel boards, industrial control panels, and motor control centers that are in other than dwelling occupancies and are likely to require examination, adjustment, servicing, or maintenance while energized shall be field marked to warn qualified persons of potential electrical arc flash hazards. The marking shall be located so as to be clearly visible to qualified persons before examination, adjustment, servicing of maintenance of the equipment. There are two fine print notes that were added in addition. NFPA 70E, the 2000 version, is referenced because 70E is your safe work practices document from NFPA. And then there's ANSI Z535, which again is product safety signs and labels, providing the guideline for design of safety labels and signs. So this is a marking requirement for these switchboards, panel boards, and industrial control panels and motor control centers, and again, that are in other than dwelling units, so we're not talking about dwelling units, and are likely to require examination or adjustment and servicing or maintenance while energized. So these labels are there and they have to be field applied to raise awareness of an arc flash hazard. So if I look at the public inputs and public comments during this code cycle, what started this down this road would have been public input 1-235, and that was made by Ray Jones, Electrical Safety Consulting Services. And his original proposal was a flash protection for other than residential occupancies, switchboards, panel boards, load centers, and motor control centers shall be marked in the field to indicate the incident energy in calories per square centimeter for a worker at a distance of 18 inches. So what Mr. Jones was looking for was a requirement for an arc flash label of incident energy. Now you think about this. This is the 2002 version of the National Electrical Code. IEEE 1584, the first edition of that, is 2002. So one in the IEEE Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers world, we've got the introduction of a new document which has equations to help us calculate incident energy. And we have now a public input saying, hey guys, we want to label, if it's, as long as it's not a residential, this is all switchboards, panel boards, load centers, and motor control centers with their incident energy number. And this is all about the electrical worker. If you look at the substantiation from that public input, it's about the number of electricians who are being seriously burned and injured from accident, from electrical flashes while working on equipment and quote unquote hot, in an not performing energized work, not establishing an electrically safe work condition. So most of the serious incidents can be eliminated or significantly reduced. So remember, there's two things from a risk perspective. It's likelihood and severity. What an arc reduction methods can do is reduce the severity. What this labeling, what he is suggesting is to label with incident energy so that you can understand the hazard. You might not be changing the severity because you're just putting a label on saying this is what it is. but you are increasing awareness and you're helping the electrical worker select the right personal protective equipment. So this requirement had its beginnings in requiring arc flash studies for and labeling of incident energy on all of this equipment. Now, in response to the public input, the panel was to accept in principle at that time, and they accepted the following language: switchboards, panel boards, and motor control centers installed in other than residential occupancies shall be marked in the field to indicate the incident energy in calories per square centimeter for a worker at a distance of 18 inches. And they added a reference to 70E. So that was the first draft report, so to speak, the interim step that went out for public comment. And the panel statement at the time was the term load center was removed since it did not appear in Article 384, and the fine print note was added to give further direction, which is the fine print note was referencing 70E. The panel concludes, the revised proposal meets the intent of the submitter, and I'm sure Ray was very happy. Now, come to the comment phase, and what that did was it generated public comments. And so what IBEW came back and said, hold on, what they wanted was a switchboard, panel boards, and motor control centers having a short circuit current rating in excess of 20,000 amps shall be marked with the following label: warning, electrical arc flash hazard, serious injury or death, use appropriate level of personal protective equipment. And they referenced 70E and Z535. And they talked about the awareness and et cetera from a significant perspective of awareness of incident energy. And that was accepted in principle because of the language that they arrived on was basically putting a label as saying, hey, everybody, there's a hazard here, and not requiring an actual incident energy value. So just looking through it. So that's basically what happened. If you look at the various public comments that were made along this area, they were leaning more towards a field marking of incident energy and of an awareness, not an actual calories per centimeter squared. So then we arrived at the language that is in the 2002 version of the National Electrical Code that basically says that you need to provide a hazard awareness basically label in 110. No, that's not dot, it's 110-16 that says the markings shall be located so to be clearly visible, and it just says shall be field marked to warn qualified persons of potential electrical arc flash hazards. And that's the change that we see in the 2002 version of the National Electrical Code, the very first time that this section graced the pages of the National Electrical Code. Hopefully it was helpful. Thank you.